Have you ever seen a legendary creature and you're like, oh, I want to build a deck around that? And after you do and play a few games, you realize the deck that you wanted and the deck that you created are two entirely different things? The first deck I ever quote unquote made was a Garrison Starn Kellermorph deck that used the quick draw precon from Thunder Junction. I took some of the clunkier cards out and added in cards like End the Festivities and Tectonic Hazard, alongside Basilisk Collar and Gorgon's Head. And the deck that I wanted to be like Spellslinger, Pingers, Death by a Thousand Cuts kind of deck turned into board wipe control. And honestly, it was not the deck I really wanted to play. That deck eventually I turned into the Dragonless Dragon deck that I talked about in my last video last month with the backup commander from the Quick Draw Precon deck. And I'm much happier with where it sits now than when I was playing that version of Garrison Starn. But I will say that the only real link that those decks shares is that they're Izzet decks and they're Spellslingery. But I also want to talk about another deck that I recycled last year. Back during Modern Horizons 3 previews, there was a legendary creature shown off that caught my eye and really got my mind spinning and getting that deck creation juices going. Imskir Iron Eater, a Rakdos legend that cares about artifacts. The deck I built, the idea was to get a bunch of small artifacts out quickly and summon Imskir with affinity to draw a bunch of cards, and then sacrifice Imskir to cast him again to get even more cards, so I could draw through my deck, so I could do my little combo. I made the deck, tried it out for a few months, but I had an issue. The other half of Imskir's draw ability also dealt a lot of damage to me, and by the time I could get close to comboing off, I would get run over by my opponents. Also, there was another part of Imskir's card text that I was barely using. The artifact fling part of Imskir. I had a few good artifacts to fling, but because I wanted a lot of cheap artifacts to flood the board, I ultimately didn't have a whole lot of good targets for it. In the end, I decided what I actually wanted from the deck was an Imskir and started looking for other commanders and reworked the deck just a little bit. I had a few things that I knew I wanted from the deck. Number one, I wanted to stay in Rakdos. I know adding in blue would make an artifact combo run a lot smoother, but I didn't want to make the deck quote-unquote stronger. I just wanted a commander that didn't use all my life as quickly as Imskir did. Life is a resource, especially in Commander, but Imskir was just using too much for my liking. First looked at commanders like Jury, Master of the Review, and eventually Evereth, Viceroy of Plunder, who was also releasing during the time period I was looking at rebuilding this deck. And they both seemed like great payoffs for a lot of the artifact sacrifice, but ultimately I wanted more of a card draw engine in the command zone. It wasn't until I started looking at partners that I found what I truly wanted for the deck. The deck wanted to make a bunch of small artifacts and use those artifacts for card draw and value. And that is what brought me to Toggo, Goblin Weaponsmith, and Keskit, the Flesh Sculptor, into a deck that I now call Rakdos Rock Recycling. This deck is all about getting Toggo on the field as soon as possible. Ideally, we get a mana rock on 2, Toggo on 3 by our third land drop. Bonus points if the land drop is a fetch land, so we get 2 rocks. Then on turn 4, we play Kessik and any other additional piece, and we have our recycling plant ready to go. The next turn, we use Kessik, sack a few of the rocks, and start digging through our deck to search for combo pieces and, whatever else we may need. I wanted to make a combo deck, but I didn't want to do 2-card infidence or CDH. I wanted just an on-the-board sorcery speed combo that would win the game, but could be stopped. And this was before brackets were even a thing. It was just something I felt it would be more fair for the people I was playing with. Since we were focusing on quote-unquote recycling artifacts, I wanted to make the combo around cards like Mere Retriever and Workshop Assistant. With one of those in the grave, alongside a cost reducer, and either like Cart Clan Ironworks or an Ashnod's Altar, we can infinitely recycle those two cards, infinite death triggers, infinite enters triggers, and if Mere Retriever specifically is one of the two, then we get infinite colorless mana as well. But we need an actual way to win the game, so I'm running cards like Reckless Fireweaver and Agent of the Iron Throne to take advantage of those enters and death triggers to burn out the table. Of course, the combo, that's the end game. I want to make sure that before we have the full combo running, that the pieces also have their own function to push our game plans further along. Even if I don't get the full combo off, we want to push the game forward with like those burn cards and cards like Stride Hanger Automaton to give us Thopters as a BOGO with our rocks. And I've got 2 Daretti Planeswalkers to give us some extra artifacts and recycle the artifacts. And if they attack our Planeswalkers, they probably aren't hitting us. So that gives us some extra time to search for a combo. Overall, I love the way that this deck is transformed. And even though Imskir is not in the command zone anymore, he's still in the 99. He just isn't draining my life so much. I really love this deck. I always love tinkering with it. It's an artifact deck, of course. There's always new artifact cards to consider. And ultimately, if you want to give it a look, I've got a link to the deck in the description below. And if you enjoyed the video, I guess like and subscribe. Last month I made a video about the Dragonless Dragon deck that I talked about earlier in the video. And with all the Final Fantasy cards that have been spoiled and are coming out within like a week from when I'm recording this, there's some legends I want to build around. And if they strike me enough that I make an actual deck, and that deck is fun enough to talk about, maybe I'll make a video about that in the future. Who knows? But regardless, I guess thank you for watching. Look both ways before you cross the street. Don't talk to strangers. And have a wonderful day.